Hello, everybody. Today I will review the METAGAME documentary, which is essentially the sequel to the Smash Brothers documentary by Travis Beauchamp, I think is his name, also known as Samox. And yeah, I'd say if you're listening to this, you're probably familiar with the first documentary release, the Smash Brothers documentary that came out in 2013, I want to say. It was like weirdly, extremely fucking popular on YouTube, which is where it was released. And it was a documentary chronicling the history of competitive Melee, basically the MLG days. So from its inception to like when Brawl came out, essentially. When Brawl kind of killed it for a little bit. I do know, yeah, I know some of my friends, like even those who are not super into Melee, they have seen it, right? For me, I guess to give some context, Melee is like not a game that I grew up with, but it's one that I always sort of admired from afar, right? And you know, I would later play it, pick up some stuff, right? Like just screw up with Marth against the CPU, but like obviously I didn't have the capacity to like play it very seriously. And then Slippy came out last year. And Slippy is like what completely changed it for me. Slippy is like I actually started to play Melee for real and started to learn it and take it seriously. And I mean Slippy's been out for a year, right? For those who don't know, Slippy is a mod produced. Well, yeah, it's a version of Dolphin, the GameCube emulator, that specifically runs a lot better for Melee, with lower input lag, but also has online play. And this guy Fizzy quit his job for a year to make this happen, with A, rollback netcode, and B, matchmaking, so you can just play randoms. And it's so smooth and feels so... It's like this, you could actually sell this on the Switch as Melee HD, right? And like everyone would be so happy with it. But Nintendo, you know, Nintendo's Nintendo. Yeah, that's sort of what started my whole Melee obsession again, even though, again, I had been following the scene a little bit. Like, I knew players, like, I followed left and whatever. Just love this a funny guy. Yeah, like, late last year, the METAGAME documentary finally released, which it was supposed to basically pick up where the first documentary left off, right? And was highly anticipated and development for a long time. And yeah, the initial thing was like streamed live on Twitch when it came out, and then you had, like, if you wanted to see it after that, you had to buy the individual episodes on Vimeo, which is what I did recently. The thing is that the initial cut of the documentary received a lot of criticism, both because the documentary itself is like not really what people expected. I'm gonna get into that. But also because it didn't. So a lot of the players that were interviewed, they only got one interview, and they didn't get to respond to some of the stuff that was said. I'm gonna get into that as well. And generally, like, stuff was like, obviously the gaming community was like way fucking different, right, back in 2012, 2013, versus now. And a lot of people in that documentary said a lot of shit that now they probably are not super proud of, right? And it was just kind of left in the documentary with no context. And that was a huge problem for a lot of people. And like, I mean, I get it, right? Like, I think that definitely warranted a re-edit, which is what Samox did in the end. The version you buy on Vimeo now is re-edited to like remove a lot of that stuff and like make it a little bit more appropriate. We're gonna get into all of them. Yeah, and the reason I'm reviewing it is, like, I guess, like, see, it's just Melee is, like, a really sick game, you know? And I'm gonna talk more about that as well, right? Like, not today, but, like, I want to make more, just, like, fucking podcasts, I guess. I guess they're podcasts. Yeah, you just heard my door ring there. Sorry about that. It was the mailman. See, it's like... nobody complains, generally. I don't really get complaints about my release schedule. And that my shit is always late, right? I don't really get complaints of that nature. But I always, like, I feel this, like, need to sort of justify and explain myself. Like, yeah, it actually is that hard to record without interruptions. And I'm really that busy. That's not a joke, honestly, I promise you. This is not even the first time this has happened on podcast, right? That I got interrupted. Oh my god, I just called it podcast, like, out of pocket. Damn. Yeah. So Melee, really sick game, right? And that's one thing. But I think the scene itself is just so fucking fascinating. And, you know, this came up the other day, with, like, tournament registration and all this shit. Maybe you saw it on Twitter. The subject of, like, that Melee is, like, very unique with its celebrity, quote-unquote, worship, in a way. That you don't really get in other fighting games, right? In other communities. I'm not sure exactly what it is, right? Like, this one... I say like way too much, sorry. This one commentator I watch, his name's Toph. And he talked a lot about this idea that, that a lot of Melee players just have... Like, every top player has, just weird personality quirks, right? Except Zane. Zane is a normie. And I guess, yeah, a lot of it is, like, the community just has... I actually made a whole video about it for school. The subject was queer play practices. It's a lot to get into, I'm not gonna, like, fucking unfold the whole thing. But it was basically just speaking to how the community was always had to, like, fight this uphill battle, and that the game itself is just so quirky and rough around the edges, and you have to put in a lot of work to be able to play it this way. And I don't know, I guess that inherently just attracts interesting personalities, right? Strong personalities as well. I'm just not sure what it is, man. Like, I watched, there was a Street Fighter Third Strike documentary. I'm not sure when it came out, but, like, I watched it with my girlfriend, last year. Let me look for it, actually. I want to rewatch it, actually, because it was not bad. It was actually pretty good. It was basically sort of structured around, Jazzy NYC 2019. Yeah, it was structured around this one tournament. And to me, it very clearly felt, okay, they were trying to capture a similar energy, right, to the Smash documentary. And it was cool, but I feel like just the energy is so different. It's like, it's so much less cringe. The Street Fighter players are just so much more normal and, like, well-adjusted generally, and just the Smash players, there's just a endearing kind of corny energy to it that, I don't know, it just makes it very easy to, like, get obsessed over it. It's just way more anime. And Samox, in interviews, the documentary guy, he talks a lot about this as well, that, for him, it's been very easy to turn... Fuck! Ah! Man, I'm not fucking kidding. Honestly. I cannot catch a break. I can't have shit in this house. Gonna drink water from my bottle now, even though I promised I would get a glass. Fuck all y'all. I'm mad. Alright. Fuck it. So, yeah, he was saying it's very easy to like turn. He didn't literally say it that way, but like I kind of got the vibe. Yeah, it was very easy to turn it into this anime story, and I don't know, just I mean, yeah, if you've seen the first Smash documentary, right? You probably remember like it had this very interesting balance between, yeah, it's kind of cringe and corny and stupid, but like there's moments where it genuinely gets really hype. I mean, the end of the first episode, with Ken sort of like, Ken always got the best lines, by the way, yeah. And yeah, he's just saying that he wants to prove people wrong, and that his family didn't believe in him, and just with the way the music builds up, it's just so fucking good. I will say, I mean, the first documentary has really fucking great moments, but it can be a little bit of a slog, especially the first episode. I think after the first episode, it actually gets a lot better. But yeah, I'd say, overall, metagame, again, picking up where the first documentary left off, so with the release of Brawl, and then going up to, like, 2015, I think? It was Apex 2015 was the big tournament where it ended with. And if metagaming immediately feels a lot more professional. Samox even was saying that he was trying to get it on Netflix, or he is trying to get it on Netflix. So if it ever happens, like I guess that's how you could watch it. You know, you can wait for that. I do think it still feels a little bit like has gamer energy. You know, it doesn't feel like. It's not like The Last Dance in terms of production value, right? It's not that. But so, yeah, maybe they could put it on Netflix. I don't know. I'm just not. I do wonder if that's why they're struggling to get it on there. You know, because Netflix are thinking, yeah, it's just not professional enough, whatever. But it's definitely a lot more professional than the first documentary. Even though there's like corny moments of like, just they talk about PPMD's ex-girlfriend, and they just use stock footage of some white woman, and it's very bad. It's pretty corny. That's the bad kind of corny. There's good kind of corny, and there's bad kind of corny. Yeah, but you immediately notice that, and you also notice that there's just way more of a story this time. With the first documentary, it was obviously tried to build up events and like sort of frame it in a very hype way, and establish the relationships around every major event, right? But it felt episode to episode pretty self-contained. Whereas with the metagame documentary, it was way more of a larger arc, and like you had a very clear ending and a very clear middle and very clear. I said ending first, right? You had a very clear beginning, middle, and end. Yeah, you realize as you watch it, oh, clearly the focal point of this documentary is not the five gods, as was advertised, right? The whole point was it's the five gods, right? It's the era of the five gods. I'm going to talk about that a little bit, but it's not really that. Instead, it's really about PPMD, Kevin Nani, and Armada, Adam Lindgren. This is his real name, I think. About those two players specifically, and yeah, you get this just from the fact how those two players, they really get the most sort of fleshed out development, and both of them have like a really full arc by the end. You can tell that. I mean, it's weird, right, to like map sort of storytelling tropes onto real life. But you really do feel like, yeah, they had sort of a thing at the beginning, and then as the series goes on, we explain why it is that way. We explore why it is that way. And then by the end, it's kind of changed, and the perspective is very different. And, yeah. The remaining three gods, like Mango especially, acts sort of as a foil for PPMD, or like, well, I'm gonna get into that. I keep saying I'm gonna get into that, but, you know, his relationship with PPMD is very interesting, and then Hungrybox is kind of in there as well with his rivalry with Armada a little bit. And then, unfortunately, M2K, Musicking. Weirdly, probably one of the most well-known players. Like, I just remember at the time when I first sort of found out about competitive Smash, the name I would always hear was Musicking. I mean, I think a lot of that has to do that Musicking was, like, the first god. He was the original god. But in this documentary, he actually gets kind of shafted, to be honest. Which is kind of sad. But I get, like, at the same time, I do get that it wasn't really possible to fit him into the story, right? Because a lot of his play just wasn't super relevant to, Armada and PB, right? So yeah, to back up a little bit, Samox actually, his initial plan was for this to be a movie, instead of an episodic series. And you can really tell, right? It was really supposed about just this one tournament, Apex 2015. And the build up to that and like the stakes going into that and then that whole arc, right? But like as you see sort of the footage that they had, it's very clear that that was just logistically very difficult. So they had to like flesh out more and like do another episodic thing. I think that's where sort of a lot of the weird expectations came from, right? That again, it was built up, oh, it's the story, the saga of the five gods, and then it didn't really end up being that. It was just more, the five gods era was more context for the smaller story, for only these two people, right? So for those who don't know, between sort of Brawl's release and 2015, that era of competitive Melee, shut up. Do you even hear my phone vibrating? I hope not. Well, no, I hope you do so that I don't sound like a crazy person. Yeah, so this era was highly dominated. Highly dominated? Is that a word? Can you say that? I don't know. Was largely dominated by 5 players, right? Where the big meme was that they only really lose to each other and nobody else. And I guess it speaks to how just what a cracked ass game Melee is, that when you have a skill difference in Melee, it's like vast. It's very hard. Like when you're better than someone, you're like significantly better than them. Yeah, it's like, it's just one aspect that makes this game so interesting. I mean, I remember people saying on, I remember listening to an episode of the Easy Allies podcast, where Kyle Bossman was saying that, oh, are you even really the best player when only so many people are playing this game, right? Like, it's always the same couple guys in top 8. So does that even say much? Are they even that good, right? I think it's just because not enough people play this game. That's fucking dumb. That's not true at all, right? That's not the reason. It's widely documented that Melee gets a fuck ton of entrants. And especially, I mean, with the first documentary, you had a huge surge, and then with Slippy, you had a huge surge, as far as new players go. And you have people, I mean, Zane is like the best player right now, and he didn't start playing really until before 2014. It's really just that, again, the game's just so deep and it takes so much dedication that realistically only a select few are actually going to reach that level, right? And I guess that, again, that speaks to what makes the whole narrative and like the celebrity worship and all this shit so interesting and even possible in the first place. You just don't really get that with other games. I think other games just aren't set up to even have this kind of longevity in the first place, right? Like Melee does. So yeah, this documentary metagame, it takes this very interesting time period where obviously they just came off of the success of the first documentary, right? Where a lot of new players joined the scene. Brawl was being kind of abandoned very quickly. You had a player like Mango, who was extremely charismatic and was one of the earliest streamers in the Melee community. And obviously had a very easy time sort of rallying an audience behind him. And when you have an audience, that obviously grows the game as well, right? Just think about how many people know Leffen who don't even follow Smash. just because he's such a strong personality. I get that Leffen is like super annoying and shit, but it's very healthy for the game, right? It's very healthy to have this much attention on it. I need to hurry up a little bit because I need to go to my cringe 9 to 5 soon. So yeah, obviously very exciting and heated period for the game to document. It's where I personally started paying attention to Melee and watching it and stuff. But yeah, again, like I said, very quickly you realize, I mean, I should say, I was kind of primed for it, right? I didn't watch the initial premiere on Twitch. I only watched it very recently with re-edits, and they did like a bonus episode on Leffen. So I was already primed for the fact that, yeah, it's more of an Armada / PPMD story than a Five Gods story. So I think that's why I could see if I expected, if I'm a huge fucking Mango fan or something, right? Or if I'm a huge Leffen fan. Does Hungrybox have fans? just a little jab. Yeah, I understand if I was in that camp, I'd probably be disappointed as well, right? That it wasn't fleshed out more. And even for me, it was weird to see that M2K did not have a single interview, right? And he was just not fleshed out at all. His story was not fleshed out. He was featured, like, prominently in the first documentary, so I kind of get it from that logic. But it's still, as a self-contained thing, it's a very weird, right? And, oh yeah, I even said this on Twitter that, yeah, I think, obviously, it's a good thing that they edited out the slurs and, just all the fucked up shit that Leffen did when he was younger, right? I think that was the right move. But it feels very weird that they still talk about how much they hate Leffen and, that, oh, he's such a problem, he's like such a bad guy, ooh, in the documentary, right? And you don't understand what the fuck they're even talking about. There's no context for it at all. I mean, as someone who's read up on it a lot, right, myself, I do get it, right? I do know the story. For me, it's not that weird. It's just, I just imagine if you put this on Netflix, without prior context, I think a lot of people will just confuse, and there's a lot of little inconsistencies and holds in this documentary, that are a little bit unfortunate, because ultimately I think the end product is very, very enjoyable and very emotional. I was like, there was a lot of moments where I was genuinely like very, very touched. Especially, like, I wasn't a huge Armada fan, right? I didn't dislike Armada at all. He seemed like a fine enough guy, right? But, like, this documentary made me like him so much more. Because they go a lot into his family life and just the close bond he had with his brothers. And there's this whole story. I'm not sure if I should spoil it, what happens. I'll just say, yeah, Armada has 2 brothers that also play Smash. There obviously there was a big skill gap right there between Armada and his brothers, and their greatest wish, well, one of his brothers, his younger brother, his wish was to go to the US with Armada someday and compete, and just the way that arc is kind of handled, just with setting up that idea and then all the twists and turns that takes. Especially Armada is someone, if you follow the scene a little bit, you may know that he's retired now, and he actually had retired for a little bit before that. He actually was retired in 2014. So just this idea of with Armada, like, he really talks a lot about, yeah, what do I look for in life? What do I even want? And what does this mean to me? And why am I doing this? And just like, yeah, just this whole motivational aspect and the way he looks at the game and the way he looks at life, to me, was very fascinating, very touching. And yeah, that aspect of it really surprised me. I knew that PPMD's, Kevin's story, was gonna be very emotional, right? I had known that he had mental health issues, and it's weird, right? Kevin was always considered, again, one of the five gods, right? But for me, as someone who watched the game very casually, I had barely heard about him, right? When I was following the scene. And Metagame explains very well the reasons for that, right? It explains very well why he was so much more low-key and way less of a celebrity than the other gods. Yeah, I don't wanna spoil his whole story too much, but like, for example, I didn't know about his whole relationship with Mango, and there's some moments in that relationship that are genuinely heartbreaking, you know? And I think the documentary does such a good job of building up to that, and just conveying the gravitas, the personal sort of gravitas that it has for Kevin especially. I think it's very... That was probably my biggest criticism with the documentary as a whole, that Mango does not get a chance to respond ever to that whole thing. And yeah, it's just weird to think about it, right? That like these two random people meet each other very serendipitously, play the same character, bond over that, and they're such different fucking people, right? And they're really close friends for a while, and then stuff happens, right? It's a very surreal story if you think about it that way, yeah, for me. I don't know. And I think just that alone makes the whole thing worth watching. I just think Melee, I guess Metagame kind of proves how Melee has this very weird ability to really bring out the personality of the player in a way that I just don't see in other fighting games, right? It's very, very weird to watch this documentary and, like, just observe it, right? Like, as much... Even Mango now says he hates Melee and he wants to quit. And he's thought about quitting so much already, right? As much as Melee players meme that up, how much they hated the game and how much it still becomes this optimized thing, whatever, right? When you actually watch the events and how everything unfolded, it's very hard not to feel that it's still, like, as much as you optimize it, it still remains this very expressive thing, and this thing where you very naturally act a certain way. And I just don't really... Yeah, I just don't really get that in other fighting games, man. Like, I think it's especially relevant for me right now because Guilty Gear Strive is out, and Guilty Gear is one of the more expressive fighting games, right? As far as 2D fighting games go. Like traditional 2D fighting games. Anime fighting games, whatever. Like, anime fighting games are already a lot more expressive and open than other kinds of games, right? But it's still not Smash. It's still not quite the same thing. Yeah. Just, Melee just hits fucking different, man. And I hope that's what I'm conveying here a little bit. I think, yeah. Again, Metagame, just with how it's edited and the way they chose the interview snippets, and with the music especially is so absurdly fucking good. I just cannot imagine watching it and not being insanely hyped at points. There's one moment where, should I spoil it? I don't know if I should spoil it. Well, yeah, I'll just say, I said it on stream before, right? I told the whole story on stream, but, basically, Armada was struggling against Hungrybox's Jigglypuff, right? Peach had a hard time against Jigglypuff. And he thought, fuck, in Sweden, there aren't really any good Jigglypuff players, so I can't really practice with Peach. So I have to find a weird gimmicky solution that Hungrybox just can't get used to, right? And the solution that comes up with is so hilarious in retrospect, and but just the way they present it is so fucking cool. It's just very weird that, again, it has this balance of corny versus actually kind of hype, where they talk about these very dumb cartoon characters, right? And, like, just overanalyze this stupid fucking game for babies. but they speak on it like so matter-of-factly and so like so sincerely, right? That you can't help but get swept up in it. And it's just awesome. It's just really fucking cool. So yeah, that's my metagame review. I think I think I spent more time just like on context than the actual documentary, but you know, that's fine. I think I don't want to spoil the whole documentary, right? My aim is more to just get people to watch it and maybe to get people to play Melee. It's a pretty cool game. So yeah, I hope maybe I caught your interest a little bit, and I hope you enjoyed this. And goodbye. I'll head to my fucking stupid job now.